Welcome back to DaBoot Tragedies. In this video, we're going to predict the 53-man roster for the Saints. Now, I'm doing this video before other teams make their cuts, which means the Saints can like something out there that gets cut. You know, it's a surprising veteran that gets cut every year, and teams are going to be interested in him. So I'm going to do this video before all final cuts are made. Also, we can make trades. A lot of teams have been calling the Saints about trades just because we're going to have good players that's probably going to get cut, and maybe teams just want to get in a trade so they don't have to fight over them in free agency or on the waiver wire or anything like that. And the Saints have been slowly cutting, which kind of, proves my point. I think a lot of teams are cutting players fairly easily. The Saints are taking their time. They're probably filling trade calls and just going about things slowly. Now, we're going to start with the quarterbacks, obviously. Andy Dalton's going to make the team. No, I'm joking. Obviously, Jameis Winston's quarterback 1. Andy Dalton's going to be quarterback 2. Ian Book, he'll get cut. I'm 100% sure that he'll probably go to practice squad and be on that kind of the 3rd, 4th emergency quarterback just to have somebody in the system. So the quarterbacks, there's no shock there, man. Winston, Dalton will be your quarterbacks. Ian Book is probably going to make the practice squad, but he would not be on the 53-man roster. So we're probably only going to hold 2 quarterbacks. That's just kind of what the Saints have been doing all along. And obviously, if some sick joke happened where Winston and Dalton had to leave a game, you still have Taysom Hill out there who can be your 3rd quarterback if need be. Next, we're going to move on to running backs. I think this one was fairly easy, especially once we release Z. So running backs, Alvin Kamara. He's obviously going to make the team. Mark Ingram. That's an obvious choice. I think Tony Jones did win running back 3, in my opinion. Then you have Dwayne Washington, who's going to be good on special teams. I think he'll make it. Then you have Adam Prentice, who's obviously the fullback, not a running back. But I think those are going to be the 5 backs we keep. I think Abram Smith will be a practice squad candidate, but not make the 53-man roster. And that's just the running backs. I think that's fairly simple. A lot of these positions are going to be the simple, man. Most Saints fans can predict basically 50 guys on the 53-man roster. I'm not doing anything special. Now on to the wide receivers. Michael Thomas, lock. Chris Olave, lock. Jarvis Landry, lock. I think those 3 guys, and Deontay Hardy, lock. Those 4 guys are the only locks on the receiving core. But I do think Marquez Callaway will end up making the team. I think he'll be the 5th guy. And the 6th guy, I think it was going to be between Traquan Smith and Kirk Merritt. And I think Kirk Merritt has done enough to win that job, in my opinion. He's just look better than Traquan Smith. He looks more explosive than Traquan Smith. He can help you in the return game. And I do think Traquan Smith would not make this team. I think he'll get traded. I don't know if he would get cut because the Saints gave him $3 million in guaranteed money this summer. I don't know why we did that, but we did do that. So I think they're going to try to move on away from him. But I know they want to trade him. You don't want to just give a guy $3 million and just let him go. That's just not good business. So I do think Traquan Smith is going to be on the move, or maybe that's just what I'm hoping for, but I do got Kirk Merritt making the team over here this year. Now we go to the tight end room. I do think the tight ends had some competition early on in camp, but the same 4 guys are probably going to make the tight end group. Adam Troutman's going to make the tight end group. Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, and Nick Vannett. I did think Lucas Crawl had an opportunity, but I think he got hurt, kind of set him back a little bit, so he never really got the opportunity to get those reps in the preseason and at practice. I do think he'll be a practice squad candidate. He'll be on practice squad, so he'll still be in the system, and maybe next year he'll have a better chance of making a roster. You never know, man. Injuries happen. He can still move up to that 53 this year, but at the start, do think he will not make that 53-man roster. Now on to them offensive tackles. Obviously, with Trevor Penning being hurt, that opens up a roster spot for somebody until he gets back, if he gets back. And obviously, we're going to start off with Ryan Ramczyk, All-Pro, going to be on this team. James Hurst, the other starting left tackle, is going to be on this team. Landon Young, who played well last year, is going to be on this team. Now, I have penciled in right now Lewis Kidd. I think he played the most at tackle in this preseason. I do think he'll make that roster. But it's a big caveat right here. I do think that the Saints will be looking for a tackle on the market. And if that is the case, I think Lewis Kidd will go to the practice squad and they bring in a veteran tackle or something like that. But if not, I think Lewis Kidd makes the roster out of the tackles that we have. And now on to the guards/centers. You got McCoy, you got Andres Pete, you got Cesar Ruiz, and you got Kelvin Throckmorton. I think those 4 guys, along with those 4 tackles, will be the offensive line. I think we'll carry 8 offensive linemen. If we decide to carry 9, which is a very, very high possibility as well, I will add Nick Martin into the mix. So if we carry 9 linemen, I think Nick Martin will make the team. But if we only carry 8, I think we'll be the guys I mentioned. But in this 53-man roster, I'm only going to carry 8, so no Nick Martin on this one. And I guess I can knock out special teams really, really quick. The best special special teams unit in the NFL, man. You got kicker Will Lutz, punter Blake Gilligan, and long snapper Zach Wood. That's going to be the special teams unit. I guess we can throw, actually, let's just throw JT Gray in there as well, man. He could be a special teams unit. I had him in the safeties down low, but he's really not a safety, man. He's a special teams guy, so I'll throw him in there as well. Now we'll move on to that defensive line, starting with the defensive ends. I think this one is very, very self-explanatory. With the entire D-line, you got Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner, Carl Granderson, and Tano. Those are going to be the defensive ends, man, and which is crazy because all those guys are huge and can kind of play D-tackle. And my D-tackles, Shad Tuttle, David Onyemata, Kentavious Street, and Malcolm Roach. I think the defensive line for the Saints is elite. I think we'll carry 9 guys, and those 9 guys are all pretty good. I think all those guys will kind of get in the rotation and kind of get some playing time, man. Those guys are good. We can keep them fresh. We can keep that pass rush, that run game, that run stuffing game fresh throughout the entire season. So I think all 9 of those guys will make the team. I think Jordan Jackson, the rookie we drafted in the 6th round, will be on the practice squad. It's just tough to make this team, man. We have a lot of guys that can possibly make other teams that they just won't make this Saints roster because it's just that good. Now this linebacker group, this is probably the one that's the most up in the air for the Saints roster. How many will we carry? Will we carry 5, 6, 7? Who's going to make the roster? It's a lot of younger guys that, probably going to get the spots took by veteran guys that came in, but we'll just talk about it. Let's jump into it. Obviously, we'll start with the guys that I think are 100% locks, and I think it's only 2, which is absolutely crazy to me. But Demario Davis, Pete Warner, those 2 guys, absolute locks. They'll make this team. Now, after that, it gets a little murky. I do think Caden Ellis is pretty much basically a lock. He plays solid this preseason, good special teams guy. I think Eric Wilson is going to be a lock on this roster. He also played well, and he's just a good vet to have. Now, after that, I do think it's 2 spots left for like 4 guys. You have Chase Hansen, John Bostic, Zach Bond, and Andrew Dow. Now, of those 4 guys, I think only 2 of those guys will get those roster spots, man. I think Andrew Dow is a good special teams guy, good backup linebacker. I think he'll get one of those spots. In this last spot, it's very, very tough because I think John Bostic is a really, really good player, but I do think Chase Hansen just had the better preseason. John Bostic kind of came on late, so I am going to give Hansen that spot for now over John Bostic. I do think John Bostic is a really good player, though, and maybe they'll squeeze him in on this roster, but on my 53, I just don't have him, but I do think he's a really good player. And I think Zach Bond, this is 3rd or 4th year in the league, I do think we can bring him back on practice squad, but I do think he doesn't make this roster this year. And coming down the home stretch with the defensive backs, we'll start with the cornerbacks. I do think the Saints will do something a little different this year, and we're only going to carry 4 cornerbacks. I guess you can count it 5. It depends on where you're, counting Gardner Johnson in. But outside cornerbacks, I will just list it as that. Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, that'd be your 1 and 2, and I think the backups to those guys would be Alante Taylor and Bradley Roby. Those are going to be the 4 outside cornerbacks that the Saints keep. And then we have the safety/inside corners, nickel guys. We'll start with GJ, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I know he'll be the nickel cornerback. Then you have Tyrann Mathieu, obvious. Marcus May, obvious. PJ Williams, obvious. I added just JT Gray into the special team, so we won't count him. And I think Justin Evans, man, he did a hell of a job this preseason, this camp, to make this team. So I do think he'll make this roster. I think him and Kirk Merritt were 2 guys that were probably not slated to make this team, coming into camp, coming into preseason. But those 2 guys, they worked hard, they made plays, they did what they had to do. So I think those 2 guys are going to be the ones that, make this roster that the Saints probably didn't have in their initial 53. They're kind of, throwing a wrench in the Saints plan, which is a good thing. That means guys are performing. Hey, may the best man win. That's kind of how this business goes. I do think that'll be the 53-man roster. I think with the only surprising misses and cuts will be Traquan Smith, obviously, because he's been here for so long. I do think Vincent Gray, side note, at cornerback will make that practice squad. He had a very, very good camp/preseason, if you ask me. I think Taco Charlton's going to miss out on the team. I think he had a hell of a preseason. He looked good out there, but our defensive line is just so good that he just won't be able to make this team. Let me know what y'all think about the 53-man roster in the comments below, and as always, just DaBoot Tragedies, and I'm out.